RotoGrinders. Welcome to RotoGrinders Today. Welcome to RotoGrinders Today. I'll eventually get the new name of the show burrowed into my mind, but welcome, Jordan Cooper, aka BlenderHD. If you want to follow me on Twitter, and it's Monday, September 25th. You know what we do on Mondays? We bring in James McCool, the co-author with me on the Theory of Daily Fantasy Sports 15-hour audio DFS masterclass. You could pick up at theoryofdfs.com. Also, the Theory DFS for Advanced Players, which comes with James' custom Excel tools that I used yesterday to build my 10 GPP lineups on DraftKings, and I hand built. I didn't use the Excel tools, but I did use the optimizer for FanDuel. I built 5 FanDuel GPP lineups. DraftKings, I almost broke even in GPP, lost money in cash. FanDuel, I lost money in GPP, but completely obliterated cash games on FanDuel. Yeah. It made up for it. And then props, I landed a whole bunch of 6-6s on Prize Picks. Mm-hmm. So very, very, very good. Very, very good day on Prize Picks. When you hit a 25, when you hit like 5, I think I hit 5 6s, and 7 5s.
Pretty good.
Because I round just to be clear, it's like I'm using the same stuff and round robining it for less and just pairing different stuff together because I like correlated props.
Yeah.
Oh, like pair. I have 2s and 2s and 2s, and then I just like instead of like $200 for 1 6, it's like, well, I have all these single props and I'll just rotate them all around for like $30 each. But 30 turns into 750 quite quickly, or into 300 quite quickly. So, very good day on the prop street. James, good Sunday or bad Sunday for you?
I think I broke exactly even. I'm pretty sure I broke like exactly even. I was down a little bit until Adam Thielen caught that touchdown late, and then I broke like exactly even. I'm pretty sure.
Well, what was your action? You typically just play a couple of GPP lineups on DraftKings.
Yeah, so I played 3 in the Wildcat and then 3 in the $50 quali and the 125 quali. So okay. I just did those, and then 3 in the milli because whatever, it's lotto ticket. Right. And then I had my cash game action. I got wrecked in cash this week.
Well, what was your cash lineup?
So
I mean, because I didn't get wrecked in cash on DraftKings. I played probably, I think, one of the most popular lineups that was played, and like I still won like 40% of my head-to-heads.
I think I won 25%, and it's simply because I didn't have Tank Dell.
Well, I didn't have Tank Dell either.
Yeah, I think that he was like, if I would have had him instead of Zach Ertz, because I did double tight end so that I could get both.
Oh, that's where you went wrong. Dumb. Yeah. Did you do the Ertz Smythe lineup?
Yep, I did the Ertz Smythe lineup.
So you did that. Let me guess. You did that so you could jam in both Justin Jefferson and Tyreek Hill.
Yeah. Yeah. And so if there were basically like kind of 2 routes that you could have taken. You either jam in both Jefferson and Hill, or you go Keenan Allen instead of Justin Jefferson. And like life is hard. Looking back on it, like ownership projections just were not good enough for me this week. And that's where, like, with my strategy, that's going to fall apart a little bit.
So how is it? So to get more deeper into that, why were they off for you?
I was too low on Tank Dell.
Oh, okay. So you had his ownership much lower than
right. So
I had him. I mean, I had him way. I thought he was going to be easily the most popular punt play on the slate.
Right. So I was going back and forth on a couple different things. Realistically, what it came down to was Tank Dell or Adam Thielen. I thought that Adam Thielen was going to end up getting more ownership and take away a little bit from Dell. He didn't.
Who wants to play that dude? Are you kidding me?
Well, he ended up being great. Like, he put up 33 fantasy points.
Yeah, he ended up being old school Adam Thielen. I was perfectly fine with that dude. I was perfectly fine with Thielen. I'm just saying, from an ownership perspective, people like the shiny new toy and not the old crusty guy.
I get it. And I understand, like, I talked through it a little bit after the fact, and I was like, man, yeah, I should have just gone with Tank Dell and pushed his ownership up, because what I thought was going to happen was people there's a lot of talk about Adam Thielen leading up, and I thought that was going to steam him up a little bit and take Tank Dell down a little bit. And that didn't end up happening. So if I had higher ownership projections on Tank Dell, I had him somewhere in the 10 to 15% range. If I have him in the 20 to 25% range, which is where he actually ended up, I absolutely would have ended up with him. And I think what probably would have happened is I would have had, so I played Kirk Cousins, Joshua Kelly, Jerome Ford, Justin Jefferson, Tyreek Hill, Christian Kirk, and then Smythe Ertz and the Jets defense.
Okay, so you opted for not paying up at running back at all,
right,
and playing Ford, who truthfully, luckily got there.
Yeah, well, right. He did luckily get there, but
unless snaps, then the beginning of the game, like it's like, is this guy like this guy may get a 0-0.
Things were bad. The vibes were not terrific early in the slate. In cash, the vibes were not terrific early in cash. I was doing terrific in GPPs. I cashed all 3 of my GPP lineups this week.
Right,
that's what saved me, right? But in cash, I just ownership projections. I just didn't do a good enough job on them this week, and that was kind of my downfall on them. So
right, and here's my cash lineup from DraftKings. The lineup that I could have played. I was debating between 2 lineups, and of course, the lineup that I would have played would have done way better.
Yeah,
is that I tried to avoid playing a cheap wide receiver. Like, because the range of outcomes on those wide receivers are ridiculous. I also didn't think that Tony Pollard at 8K, when we have running backs in the 5K range that are perfectly viable and underpriced, are worth playing. But if I were to pay a little bit up, like, I thought that the 6K wide receiver range was kind of barren. So other than Mike Williams, if I were going to play anyone in that range, it would have been Travis Etienne.
Yeah, right. I can see that.
So the lineup I was debating was either this lineup that's up here, right? Jefferson, Williams, Kirk, Smythe, Madison, playing Moss, Kelly, and Madison, and the Jets defense. I had, instead of Christian Kirk, Tank Dell. Instead of Alexander Madison, Travis Etienne. And instead of the Jets defense, the Bills defense.
Yeah. And that was the other big thing, right? Was Bills defense. I didn't have the Bills defense. A Jets defense.
Right. They were 25% owned in cash game.
Yeah. I mean, they were high owned, but in some of my cash game optimals, I was getting the Bills defense. And so that was another spot where it's like, all right, well, so I mean, I just think
what, 29 points, 29 points.
Yeah, it was pretty big. I scored 140.58. If I end up with the Bills defense and I wanted the Bills defense and I was $100 short, so I played the Jets defense.
Right. Well, the same for me. That's this lineup. Yeah.
Yeah. So it just there were a couple different directions to go in cash this week, and I didn't think that outside of Joshua Kelly, I thought that there were going to be a lot of different ways to go in terms of a ownership optimal, the way that I usually go. So it just came down to like kind of rough, I think, for me for this week in terms of trying to nail down what direction the cash game should have been. Because usually when I run a cash game optimal, there's like 6 players that are just like in every single lineup. And this week there were maybe 4, I think. So those extra couple slots, that's where I get kind of bogged down a little bit in cash. And the Tank Dell thing, that ultimately was the spot where I fell apart the most, because if I had Tank Dell higher projected in ownership, I think what I end up doing was probably getting him over Ertz. So there's an extra 26 points. And then probably, I don't know, a cheaper defense, I would guess.
You get the Commanders defense.
Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah. But, I mean, I still would have scored 160.
Yeah, you would have been fine. You would have
something. Yeah. It was just Tank Dell.
Right.
So.
And then on FanDuel, yeah, I scored a lot of points. Like at one point, heading into the late games, I was like 14th in the millie. Right, with my cash lineup. Obviously, with the Josh Kelly 2.2. That wasn't gonna. I mean, I was just gonna fall from there. But yeah, like I mean, and these guys were not. This is the $25 like 181 man double up or something.
Yeah.
Like, look at these ownerships. It's not like I'm playing like anything that's out of the blue. The thing is that I played the Bills defense on FanDuel, where everyone was playing the Jets defense at 3,900, and also people are playing Cousins, right, instead of Lamar Jackson, who I thought FanDuel, he's always more valuable on FanDuel than he is
the rushing stuff.
right? Because of the right, because you don't get 300-yard bonuses on FanDuel. So like I prioritized playing Jackson, and really it came down to like I'm playing Laporta. The three running backs I was going to play were Mostert, Kelly, and Madison, and Jefferson was going to be in my lineup. And it just came down to like, what do I want to do with defense in these two other wide receiver positions?
Yeah.
And I'm like, do I play Chris? The thing was that I was already playing Christian Kirk on DraftKings.
Mm-hmm.
So I decided not to play Christian Kirk because I could have replaced Amari Cooper with Christian Kirk and then the Buffalo Bills defense with the Jets defense. And then I look at my lineup and it's practically the same lineup I'm playing on DraftKings. So it's like, given the choice and the difference of projection of very little, I'll be a little bit more diversified. I mean, you got Mike Williams here. Of course, Mike Williams catching the ball from Keenan Allen, right? How do you project that one?
Man, I was tilting so hard at that because, like, I don't think that I have ever experienced in my DFS career running so good that I would have both of my 30% owned wide receivers throw a touchdown to one another. I have never run as hot as the sun like that. And that instance just broke me yesterday.
Let's talk about GPPs.
Yeah.
One thing that error on my part, I did not do, I didn't say a good job, but I'm just saying I do what I normally do. Running back, this is the Millie in Results DB. Obviously, you could pull this up, rotogrinders.com/ResultsDB. It's free. I believe it's still free.
Yep.
So feel free to go there and look around all you want with all the contests yesterday. But I did not get ownership on the running backs. Correct.
It was hard this week. It was hard this week.
The thing was, you have to factor multiple things. Okay. So the way that I do ownership in my, artistic sense, not in any scientific sense, is first off, there are multiple variables that affect ownership. One, how many people are using projections, right? So I see all the projections, and if you run lineups and optimizers, you could see who gets in lineups more than other people. So you got that. So those are the people that use optimizer projections, stuff like that. Then you got like top play type of stuff, right? Guys that project well, because in the running back this week, there were 10 plus options that were totally like if I saw them in your lineup, I'm like, okay, I think that's fine. That project decently enough together to each other. But then it comes down to like who do people want to play more? And there's not like I have to think of like when I said about Thielen or Tank Dell. It's like people don't like clicking on Thielen. Done.
Right.
Easy. Right. And then the third one is just sentiment analysis. What popular sites and podcasts are, what are the narratives being driven? And you have to weigh that against one another. So, like, if we take a look at the Millie, like, I had Josh Kelly as the highest owned running back, which it did come in. I expected, the situations here were, okay, how much weight is being put into Jerome Ford's game last week? And then that's recency bias. And then you also have the narrative of he's going up against the Titans run defense. And are people going to want to click on that? And then you have Jahmyr Gibbs, that the word comes out the day before, he's going to get a majority of the work. Well, how is that going to affect? How are people want to click? People want to click on him. And now they give an even better reason to click on him. Then you've got guys like Alexander Madison, the best game environment on the entire slate, and one of the better projections on the entire slate. But I also know that people think he's garbage. Right. And then you have like guys like Miles Sanders that people don't want to click on, like they used to. And then like Tony Pollard, people do want to click on, but he's also expensive. Right. And then Mostert is there and on a Miami team without Salvin Ahmed. Are people going to want to click on him? People want to play Bijan Robinson. I didn't realize how much they did because I think that ownership is ridiculous. I thought the odd people out on the slate would be Kenny Walker and Travis Etienne. And it turns out they came in the second, third highest owned running backs, even though I did have Madison projected lower I had Madison. I mean, this is the Millie, so obviously I'm not playing the Millie. I'm doing it a little bit for slightly smaller fields. Like I had Madison for like 14% ownership when he probably should have been 18+% owned. Like I had Etienne at 12 and Walker at 10, like stuff like that. And then I had more of Zach Moss. Like, dude, Zach Moss I had is like the second highest owned running back on the entire slate on DraftKings.
Mhm.
And he comes in at like 8% owned because he's like the only guy in the backfield. Like,
Right.
If you went by projections, he was the top projected running back.
His usage was crazy in week 2.
But I mean, do people want to click on him? No. And is it the type? And also, he's on an underdog, right? So people looked at that. I heard the narrative multiple times throughout the week that Zach Moss is going to be popular, but do you really want to play the running back? Is he really going to get pass catching work? Like people were trying to poke holes. Trey Sermon was activated, was coming up, and it's Gian Jackson was got rid of, and so I thought the projection people would boost up the ownership. So like, I made it a point to play less of Zach Moss and looking at the ownership now in my 10 lineups on DraftKings. I would have played less Walker and Etienne as I did, even though Walker well. And I would have played more. I mean, I already did play more of Madison in my lineups, but I played I played Mostert, I played Madison, I played 1-2 Moss. Like I played Moss in like a Baltimore lineup, Lamar plus Andrews plus Flowers plus Moss, like something like that. But to me, like I don't know, I didn't think that typically people don't want to play Kenny Walker, right? When we have guys that are cheaper, I don't really know what happened there, but I mean, obviously Bijan's way overowned. What were your thoughts as far as like projecting running back in general?
Like I said, this week was hard. It was hard to project running back specifically. I thought I knew that Joshua Kelly was going to be the highest owned player, and I also knew that he was the worst play on the slate.
The worst play on the slate?
Oh yeah. Like
how do you project that?
How do I project him as the worst?
How do you project the Chargers throwing 22 out of the first 25 plays of the game?
Well, you don't project that, but you can reasonably project that Joshua Kelly is not going to get the receiving work, which is the only valuable piece of a running back role in that offense. Like he has never eclipsed. I don't think he's ever eclipsed a higher than 10% target share when he's had the bulk of the work with that offense. Week 2, he only had like 6%. Like week 1, he only had like 3% or something. He doesn't get the receiving work. And the only reason why Austin Eckler is valuable is because he gets the receiving work. Other than that, like the rushing role for the Chargers is not that good. So
ultimately, you're saying that, and I make these comparisons often on my Saturday stream. Joshua Kelly at 5,400. If you just eliminated all the receiving possibility, is not the only thing that makes him any different than Brian Robinson and Gus Edwards at these prices and AJ Dillon, like Isaiah Pacheco, like he just happens to be in a good game environment, but ultimately he's just a rushing and touchdown dependent back for a similar price. Like if you look at Gus Edwards and said, how do you play him?
I was going to say,
or like Pacheco, even on the Chiefs had a 30-point total. So it's like that's a great game environment for him to score. Why aren't you playing Pacheco over Kelly?
Yeah.
If you take out the possibility of receiving.
For all intents and purposes, Joshua Kelly and Gus Edwards were the exact same play. Like they both had pretty decent team totals. They both are just running backs that get the rushing work and don't really get much receiving work. Those two are the exact same play. So at ownership, so when I was running the contest simulations, by far Joshua Kelly was the worst play. I think he was 20% overowned. He should have been he was only showing up in like 4% of the optimals in the contest sims. So it's like at 25% owned, I said it on my Saturday stream, like if he's really going to be 25% owned, if he stays at that, it's a gift. Like there's just no reason for him to be 25% owned in this spot. So, Joshua Kelly, we knew that he was going to be high owned. People were talking him up for whatever reason. And then Kenneth Walker. So I didn't think that Kenny Walker was going to be that high owned. I had Travis Etienne projected relatively highly. I think maybe 16 to 18% or something. I had Tony Pollard projected highly. I didn't have, I had Raheem Mostert probably somewhere around 20%. So I was fine eating that. And then he comes in at 12% in the Wildcat. And I'm like, what are we doing here? Let me
bring up the Wildcat ownership, because this is the quote sharper field, right? Compared to the Millie.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, I played Mostert on FanDuel primarily, but you can see here, look at how the difference in Madison ownership is in the Wildcat.
Yeah.
Right. Walker is lower. Like you see here that Pollard is higher, Kelly is higher, Etienne is a little bit lower, Walker's a little bit lower, Madison's much higher, Ford's about the same, Gibbs is about the same, Moss is higher, Dillon is higher, right? Sanders is higher, but then we go down and it's lower. Where right, who are we looking for?
Well, Bijan Robinson was only 10% in this, whereas he was 15% or something?
Is Bijan even here? Oh, yeah, he was not. Yeah, 9.6%.
Yeah, 9%.
Miles Sanders was higher, right? I mean, of course, I'm building my ownership a little bit more for this size contest, 5,000 entries.
Yeah.
So I'm a little, I had Kelly. I projected Kelly when I ran my lineups at 32% owned.
Okay,
which is the reason why I didn't get that much of him, right? And I had Tony Pollard at 20%, but I had Etienne at 12 and Walker at 10, and Madison I had around 16, 18. I had Ford at 12. Yeah, so I thought in the sharper contest, less people were going to play Ford. I had Mostert, but I just had Moss for way more. I had Moss for 20%. Projection wise, you should be playing. Dillon projected median wise well also.
I know.
So I had Dillon at 16% owned, and the Millie he came in at 4% in the Millie.
Yeah. The AJ Dillon thing, that's the recency bias thing. People just saw him last week be just a basically Eddie Lacy reincarnate, right? And they don't want to play Fat Eddie. So I guess I get that one, but yeah, I agree. The Zach Moss one was weird. I thought that I think I said that him and Mostert were the best plays on the slate. And that at ownership, for sure, they were 12% and 12% for both of those guys is crazy. I would have had Mostert on all three of my lineups if I didn't have a Miami stack. I just was not going to play him in a Miami stack.
Turns out you have to play both their running backs.
Right. Yeah. It's freaking arcane.
Imagine if I told you that let's go to the Millie. I believe I'm right? That Miami put up 70 points and the Millie doesn't have a single Dolphin in their lineup.
Who?
That Miami puts up he had him. Okay.
Yeah.
You didn't need him. You didn't that game went off, and it turns out there were enough points scored by so many other people that you didn't need Tyreek Hill. I think you needed Mostert.
You needed Mostert, yeah, because you put up 45. Technically you could have had a Kane. Technically you could have used a Kane.
And how do you even get there? Some. And Chad is I played a chain in a few lineups and those went. How do you even do that?
I think in the Millie you can do it because Salvon Ahmed was out.
What does he project for? What is that? How much could you project for that guy?
Hold on. I don't remember what I projected him, but I can check. Probably not much.
What was he in the middle? Top 1% lineups. Is there any? He was 0.3% owned. He was 5,000 salary. It's not like he was 4K even. He was 5,000.
Yeah. Hold on.
Even if you project him for half the work and no receiving yards.
I didn't project him for half the work or no receiving yards. I projected him for 3.9 points. So.
Okay, so that's so.
I
take back the fact of you could have thrown in him in the Millie. It's good luck. A 5K running back projector 4 mean points.
I would not have played him in the Millie because I have projections. But I can see somebody who doesn't have projections saying that Mostert is not going to have the full work and that they're going to use a cane or something. I don't know.
Or he's going to get injured, right? They just recency bias. Nick Chubb just got injured, and the backup running back won, right? So
yeah, Squirrel Patrol literally won $1 million because of running back injuries. So why can't somebody else, right?
Yeah, but the thing is that the starting running back scored the second most point. Like it's like, oh my God, I played Devon a chain and got 50 plus points out of him. And I'm playing against a guy that probably knows what they're doing, that played Mostert and other slots in their lineup that were much better. Because the guy that played Devon a chain also has Donovan Peoples-Jones and Evan Ingram paying up for Mark Andrews, and then he's playing. He ends up with some injured guy in the wide receiver slot. I mean, like those types of lineups.
Yeah. So get some. I'm a Dolphins fan. I knew Miami was down to 2 workhorse running backs. That's the way that you play a game, right?
Okay.
That's how. I get that.
All the chalk around them. If you're going to play a 0.3% on running back, you might as well just jam in the best plays and the best projection everywhere else.
Yeah. Yep. Totally agree. So
how about wide receiver? What do you think about the split between? How did you project? Here's a question: how did you project Tyreek Hill with Waddle out? Because
in terms of ownership,
well, I'm not even compared to ownership at this point. Is that Jeff Jefferson in the Millie was 36% owned. Tyreek Hill was 22% owned. Mm-hmm. A lot of the ownership is a byproduct of the Vikings Chargers being the game.
Right.
So if you were playing other pieces from the game, it makes more sense to play Justin Jefferson in those lineups than play Tyreek Hill in those lineups. But several projections actually had Tyreek Hill, who's 300 cheaper, for a higher mean score points than Jefferson. But you also have to admit that Jefferson's range of outcomes is a little bit narrower because Tyreek has a lot, 180 plus, 6 catches, 180 yards. While Justin Jefferson is like he has more like 9 for 130s, right? A little bit more catches, a little bit less yardage. Did you project how did you project Tyreek compared to Jefferson? It didn't. I mean, ultimately, it didn't matter. They scored about the same amount of points.
Right. Yeah. I had Justin Jefferson slightly higher by about 1.5 in terms of median, just because of his reception total. In half PPR, had him about a point over because I had him for a little bit more yards. So I had Justin Jefferson a little bit higher. As far as the ownership stuff, when I was doing my show on Saturday, I was talking about Tyreek Hill looking underowned. Like as far as when I was running contest sims, he was like 20% underowned or something when he was projecting for 10% ownership. But it was very clear that he was going to jump up into like the 20 to 25% range after the Waddle news came out. So I had Justin Jefferson higher, but I also, I don't know. I didn't think that Justin Jefferson was going to be 36% owned. I thought that with Tyreek Hill coming up, I thought that we would see Justin Jefferson come down a little bit. Initially, I had him around 35%. I thought he'd be 30, and I thought that Tyreek Hill would be 20 to 25. I thought they'd be way closer. The ownership did not condense the way that I thought that it was going to. People just stuck to their guns and played Justin Jefferson instead, and paired him with that Chargers and Minnesota game. And that just goes, there's been a lot of talk lately about whether contest sims would stop people from game stacking and stop people from doing bringbacks. And it has not stopped people. It's not stopping people. And that's because people still don't understand things that they're seeing when they're running these new tools. And also, I said this when I was breaking down what contest sims do to the industry. One, people don't understand what they're seeing when they're running these tools. 2, not that many people are using these tools. I have a subscriber today, it is Monday of week 3, said, oh my God, the contest sims give you lineups that you can see. It's week 3. Like you haven't used them yet to like see that this is how they work. People are not using them. People don't understand how to use them. So people are still going to continue to be using bringbacks. So people are still going to continue to be using game stacks. And I think that
you can still do, but you can. I mean, you can as long as they project well. But you're not forcing stuff in.
That's not what I'm saying. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that the field in general is going to continue to do the things that they think have been good and will continue to work over the last 3 years.
Right.
I do not think that we are going to see this year, and probably for multiple years. I don't think that, like, people still don't even really know how to use optimizers, Jordan. People still don't know how to look at a median projection and understand what it means. You think people are going to understand contest simulations and be able to apply it?
Right.
No.
They're going to look at contest simulations and they go, why am I getting Raheem Mostert and Tyreek Hill?
Right.
And Durham Smythe without Tua in this lineup? And why is that projected for highest ROI? Like, yeah, the Dolphins put up a bunch of points, but some cheaper quarterback gets there with someone else. Like, this is how this operates. Like, there are outcomes where this is the case. And and I've been learning more on being more adaptable to, instead of doing like mini game stacks, doing mini team stacks, preferably. Meaning that, for instance, very similar to baseball. So think of this concept. In baseball, you stack on a large slate, you're much more likely to stack. Now, obviously, you're probably stacking on any slate, but I'm talking about 5-man stack DraftKings type of thing. 12-game MLB slate versus the 4-game MLB slate.
Right.
The reason why you stack is not because it's all the batters are correlated to each other. Yeah, that's correct. But on a 12-game slate, there are 24 teams playing. And if you stack the team that scores 10-plus runs, you're most likely going to have 5 batters that are going to win you a GPP, right? Most likely. Of course, there's pinch hit. There's one guy, Aaron Judge hits all the home runs, and that's it. I mean, there are other outcomes there. But most likely, if you could find the team that scores a ton of runs this slate, right, in comparison to the rest of the other teams, you're going to win with that 5-man stack. Now, there's 24 teams to choose from. A 4-game slate, there's only 18 to choose from. So there's only 4 games. Maybe no team scores that many runs. So you're not going to, a stack is not going to be necessary. But as you add more teams to the slate, the more and more likely, just by opportunity, that some team is going to put up a ton of points, is going to score, in NFL, is going to score 5, 6, 7 touchdowns, right? Is going to have a quarterback that puts up 400 passing yards, right? In that type of game, regardless if it's a close game or even if it's a blowout. Just what team is going to put up 35 plus points? Now, if you look on a 12-game NFL slate, well, you got 24 teams that could do it, right? It's probably unlikely to be, the Jets,
Right.
but it's the same thing as it's unlikely to be the Pirates in MLB. I mean, it's the same exact type of thing. On a smaller slate, right, the less teams there are on a slate, then like the less likely that any of the teams, because there's just less opportunity. So on these main slate, large slates, especially before the bye weeks come in, like I've been building more. I've been looking at least, maybe not choosing as many of them. I've been building lineups, and I let the projections go where they go, right? And I just see, and I go, well, these 2 guys on the same team project well. So I got lineups with like Damian Pierce and Tank Dell, right? And then no Jaguars. And I'm like, most people would be like, that this doesn't make any sense. They said, well, who said you need the Jaguars? It just means that those, well, how come no CJ Stroud or anything? Well, some other quarterback scores higher than that. I saw lineups with like Josh Kelly and Mike Williams, because obviously they both project well, and no Vikings. So I'm like, that's fine, right? I saw lineups with Lamar Jackson with no one, right? Lamar Jackson one side, Zach Moss the other side, and then both Williams and Keenan Allen. And it's like, well, how do you play those 2 wide receivers without playing Herbert at quarterback? It's like, well, what happens if Lamar Jackson rushes for 100 yards and scores 40 points? But Justin Herbert puts up 32 because Allen and Williams are doing well. Like these lineups have win probabilities. These lineups have similar win probabilities as the ones that, quote, make sense to you. Now, that being the case, heuristically, if you have no way of figuring out through simulation what these weirder type of lineups sort of look like, you'd probably be better off heuristically building the stacked lineups that you have been building, because the amount of EV you're giving off, as long as you're playing well-projected players that are under-owned, you're probably fine. But when some of these quote weird lineups win, and you go, wow, they played 2 guys from this team and then 3 from that team, dude, take a look at go to the RotoGrinders top leaderboard for NFL. Start taking a look. It amazes me that people have not pointed it out. Some of the top MME players, a lot of their lineups are onslaughts now. A lot of their lineups are quarterback and 3 people from one side and none from the other side, and then 2 players from some other team in another game, right? Some running back, they're playing, Dameon Pierce plus Tank Dell, and then it's an onslaught of Tua, Tyreek, Craycraft, Smythe, and the Dolphins defense, and Mostert, and then you look at the lineup and you go, how could everyone get there? Dude, we've seen it. Everyone can get there. The thing is that those lineups also, if those teams don't get there, very similar to MLB, you stack the team that gets, one hit, by the garbage pitcher, like your team's at the bottom of the standings, right? Yeah. Like it adds a ton of variance, and people are not over-stacking enough because they look at these lineups and go, it doesn't make any sense from a football perspective, but from a contest outcome perspective, it actually does. I'm assuming you see similar stuff in your sims. Weird stuff comes out that doesn't make any sense, but it doesn't make any sense to the naked eye. And then you look and you go, well, yeah, I guess this could happen it's quite possible that, Justin Fields is the highest scoring quarterback and none of the other Bears get there, and none of the Chiefs get there either because their offense is all spread out. And then you end up with a triple stack of the Chargers. And you're like, how do I play a triple stack of the Chargers without playing? How do I play Allen, Williams, and Donald Parham in tight end with no other Vikings, and then Justin Fields at quarterback? And you go, well, if all 3 of them get there, shouldn't I be playing Herbert? It's like, well, in some versions of, depending on the ownership of Fields scores 40 points against the Chiefs, and Herbert only scores 28, and you're going to need the Chargers stack and Fields in order to win that large of a field contest.
Yeah, and I see both extremes. I see a lot of no stacked lineups, like lineups that have like a quarterback that, like, I'll see Josh Allen is one that I see a lot, where I'll see Josh Allen naked a lot in contest sims. Or I'll see like Lamar Jackson is another one. Jalen Hurts is another one. Like these quarterbacks that have rushing upside, you see them a lot naked in contest simulation outcomes. And then on the other side of it, like you'll see somebody like Matthew Stafford with like Puka, Tutu, Higbee, and then also Kyron Williams. Like that I just ran things, and like there are some lineups where you have like literally just the entire Rams offense and then no bring back on the other side, because they win some percentage of the time.
Right.
And it's important to understand and realize. And so like, yeah, if you have one lineup, maybe that's not the one that you're tying your wagon to. Maybe that's, you don't want to take on that much variance, right? That's where we start talking about ownership. That's where we start talking about roster construction, win conditions, all that kind of stuff, right? We talk about a lot of that stuff in the theory of DFS. But like there is some percentage of the time that it wins. Your job as a DFS player is to weigh how much it wins versus how much of your bankroll you want to allocate towards those win conditions. And if you have a portfolio of 150 lineups, a good example of this, you remember when we talked about the live final, the baseball live final, and how he had the lineup that won was the 4th lineup that he made out of 5, or no, the 5th lineup that he made out of 5. It was the last lineup that he made. And every single hitter in his Tampa Bay stack was 1% owned. He doesn't make that lineup if he only has one lineup, because
you can I don't want to get he can.
No. What
he's taking on a lot. He's taking on a lot of risk by doing so.
But we know from what happened that he would not have built that lineup alone if he only had one lineup.
Right.
He didn't.
From a risk perspective. Right. It doesn't mean that the lineup in and of itself is bad.
Right. It just means that there are higher expected value lineups that he could have made outside of that one. And then with his fifth lineup, and I guess I'm speaking for him here, right? Like he could have a completely different system, but the way that I look at it is his expected value is higher. He out of his 5 lineups, the first one that he built was the highest expected value lineup, and then the next one a little bit lower, and the next one a little bit lower, and he worked down the list, and then eventually said, nobody is going to play the Tampa Bay stack. I'm going to have a Tampa Bay stack just in case it goes off, and it went off. Kind of the same thing here where we're talking about it with NFL. Like, if you have 150 lineups and you start at the top and you dedicate more of your bankroll and more of your portfolio to the higher expected value outcomes, and then you work your way down and you work your way down the lower list of expected value, and then eventually you're going to have some subset of lineups that are like a Ram stack with Stafford, Kyron Williams, Tutu Atwell, Puka Nacua, and Tyler Higbee, and like maybe have 2 of those lineups out of 150 tonight. But like those lineups win some percentage of the time, so dedicating some bankroll to it makes sense, based on the ownership and based on how many people are going to have that combination of things, especially if we're dealing with dupe counts. Some people have their eyes just spinning in their head as I'm going through
No,
this,
because
but
you're talking about risk. You're not talking.
Right.
You shouldn't be using the term expected value here.
Sorry, risk.
You're term about risk and variance.
Sure.
For instance, the lineups that like, oh, it's this weird lineup that's underowned and still decently projected can have a higher expected value than a lineup that makes sense to you.
You're right.
The thing is that the risk of the lineup, like the distribution of how that lineup realizes its EV, is extremely skewed.
Right.
So think of that. Think of terms of you're building 150 lineups. If you're building one lineup per 150, it's not the highest EV. No, you're building lineups where if I have like what I did with my DraftKings stuff, it's like oh, I have 10 lineups. I think Alexander Madison is going to be underowned here. I could play him in 10. I could play him in 0. It doesn't matter on the specific player. Mm-hmm. I'm going to build lineups. I played a Desmond Ridder lineup.
Gross.
That Desmond Ridder lineup likely had a similar expected value to my Justin Herbert lineup. The thing is that the Desmond Ridder lineup, what is its distribution of outcomes when it comes to payout and realizing that expected value? It's either you win or you don't even cash, you're all the way at the bottom, right? The Justin Herbert stack, right? With Matt, like Herbert, Allen, Williams, Madison, Moss, cheap tight end, Bills defense lineup, like that may have a very similar EV. The thing is that a lot of that equity comes into 3Xing and 5Xing and 2Xing. So like its payout distribution is a little bit safer, a little bit less variant. Mm-hmm. You may not win first. A lot of times when you do well, you may come in 4th instead of 1st. And the Ridder lineup actually wins first slightly more often. It's just that when it doesn't win first, it doesn't even come close. That once you balance that out over 100,000 trials and on 100,000 sims, both lineups go together and go, yeah, both lineups have the same expected value. And you go, well, why shouldn't I play the Ridder lineup? It's going to be so much lower owned. It's like, yeah, but you're taking on so much more risk in that lineup versus the other lineup, which means you can, if you're playing $20 and you have a $1 billion bankroll, feel free to take on as much risk as you want. But if you're playing a much larger percentage of your bankroll, you're probably much more likely to take less risk. That's a percentage of your bankroll, not how much raw money it is. Which means that if you're playing 150 lineups in the Millie Maker for $3,000, like, do you want to play 150 Desmond Ridder lineups, even if they show a positive expected value? Now you can, but you could have easily a minus 98% day by doing so, or you're taking down almost all of the entire prize pool when you do win. If $3,000, if you have a bankroll of 10,000, I would never even consider. I mean, that would be ridiculous. 30% of your bankroll and you playing 150 Desmond Ridder lineups. But let's say you have $1 million bankroll. If you wanted to do that, it's less than 1% of your bankroll. So go do it. So That's perfectly fine. So most top MME players build risk into their portfolio. So they have a mix of lineups that some are chalky, some are not. Some are a mix. And they want to retain that on bad days. Maybe they still get 50, 60% of their money back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Sorry for using the wrong term there. You're right. It's risk and volatility. It's not EV.
Right.
Also, why did you play Ritter lineup?
Why not?
Dude.
I'm gonna commit one Falcons lineup. I'm gonna Drake London is gonna pay off at some point. It's a question of whether I'm gonna be homeless.
Hates Drake London. Arthur Smith hates Drake London and Kyle Pitts. Hates them. There's no Falcon stacks. I don't understand why. There was somebody in the Discord who was talking about Falcon stacks. They're like, yeah, Ritter's my boy this week. I'm like, why are you doing this to yourself? Like, why even? And he's like, it's just a no ball play. It's just I know ball and Ritter's a good play. And I couldn't fathom why anybody would play Desmond Ritter this week. He didn't project well. The Falcons are just a bad team. Actually, I shouldn't say they're a bad team. They're a bad DFS team.
The second most owned quarterback stack in the Millie was CJ Stroud.
Houston has thrown the ball 90 times through the first 2 weeks. They're a fast-paced, high pass rate team. That one makes sense.
Taysom Hill. He was a tight end.
That's terrible.
Taysom Hill was a tight end on DraftKings. I think we have him mapped in results DB to a quarterback. So, no, you would not play Taysom Hill in a quarterback spot, even at 3,300.
No.
Right.
Not.
Right.
No.
Gino was only 2.6% owned. I played Gino.
I don't think that Gino is a bad play. I kind of this week was very top heavy. I didn't really see. I mean, I know that we're getting ready to close this up, but I didn't really see any reason to pay down at stacks this week. And even the Bears, I wasn't interested in the Bears stack. I wrote them up earlier in the week, and then after I was running through things and looking at stuff, it's why would I expose myself to a team with a 17.25 team total?
That point total was still too high.
And it was expensive. That was the big thing. A Houston stack, man, you're spending 13.5K, right? You're not spending your cap. A Chicago stack was $17,000.
Right, right. Cole Kmet was over 4K or something to use him in the tight end spot. Darnell Mooney and DJ Moore are not 3K receivers.
I couldn't justify it. I just didn't think it just came down to if I'm going to play a team that has an 18 team total, I'm much more likely to play a Houston stack or even a New England stack, right? I'd rather play Mac Jones with Devontae. I played a Devontae Parker lineup. I had Devontae Parker in a lineup. I'd rather do that. I'd rather play a Carolina stack with freaking Andy Dalton. It was a Carolina stack with Andy Dalton, Adam Thielen, and Jonathan Mingo was $12,000. And they had the same team total as a Chicago stack for $5,000 less. I just couldn't justify it. The price was just too high.
I think on the other end of the spectrum, I think that the edge this year is just taking the Chiefs and exiting them out of your player pool.
That's pretty bad right now. It's so
not because they're not because it's I know plenty of sharp people that stacked Mahomes and Kelsey and it's dude, 8 people on this team could score at any time. And they run these plays on the goal line that who knows what the hell is going to happen.
Right.
I could see there will be a slate that Patrick Mahomes, that Travis Kelsey is the highest scoring tight end.
Yep.
But you may not need Patrick Mahomes because of his price, and you'll play some cheaper quarterback.
Right.
But it's going to be very I think the offense is spread out enough that it's tough to justify the cost of Mahomes plus Kelsey, even if you do throw in, who do you throw in? MVS, Sky Moore, Tony when he's healthy. You have McKinnon scoring. You have Pacheco and C8. It's Justin Watson's coming in. Rashee Rice is scoring touchdowns. The Chiefs, their main purpose, if the NFL were catering just to DFS players, the Chiefs would be on every island game. Because they're the best showdown team because of that, because there's so many options.
Yeah.
But for a main slate, I I didn't play a single Chief in my 10 GPP lineups because, what happens if the Chiefs steamroll the Bears? Well, they did, and no one got there, right? Because everyone scored.
Here's the thing with the Chiefs, man. So there's two things at play here. One, stacking them is really, really hard because, like you just said, like there's 9 people that can score a touchdown on that team. Legitimate, like 9 people. You don't get that with the Dolphins, right? Like they scored 70 points and 4 people scored touchdowns.
Right. But everyone played the $2,900 tight end in a game where the team scored 70 points.
And he gets 2.5 points.
Right. He has one catch for 5 yards.
I played freaking Riverker Kraft.
Who
got injured. That sucked. But anyway, with the Chiefs, right? So not only are there like legitimately 9 players that can score touchdowns for the Chiefs, so stacking them is a fool's errand. But if you say, okay, I'm not going to stack with anybody but Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, that's what most people are doing. So then the majority of the people, if you played Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, you're now competing with the most common construction of Chiefs lineups. So like even then, like you're trying to then compete with the other people that just have Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce. I think that Travis Kelce is just the only Chief that you play. You don't. Patrick Mahomes.
There may be a slate where Patrick Mahomes separates himself at quarterback position,
but like
it's less likely than the tight end position because truthfully, tight end this year, like, dude, we're gonna. I mean, let me take a look at this past week. Other than Laporta,
it was Laporta. That was it.
Like, who scored well? Laporta, Kelce scored 19, but he was 7,200. And then Farrell Brown doesn't count because he wasn't even. No one owned him.
Right.
Hawkinson 14, like Evan Ingram 13. I don't think there's going to be. I think the opportunity cost at tight end is just so low.
Yeah. That
either you're paying for someone that could greatly outscore everyone else completely, or you don't really. It doesn't.
Well, I mean, now at this point, you're either correlating your tight end or you're playing Travis Kelce. Like I think that Travis Kelce should be the highest. Travis Kelce is probably going to be the most valuable tight end through the entire rest of the year if he's healthy, right? Like he just.
But in DFS, he needs a lot of times on the slate. He needs 30+ points, and then he also needs every other tight end to have 15 or less.
And
but to play him.
We think that most tight ends are going to score 15 or less, and he's basically the only tight end that can score 30. So like that equilibrium is legitimately there to where like he should be every single slate. He should be like 25+% owned because even though the opportunity caught, or even though the amount of points that he needs to score to matter is like 20+ fantasy points, that's like the expectation every single week. And other tight ends, they just don't have the ceiling. You have to play 2 tight ends to get the same expectation as you get out of Travis Kelce.
Right. Or you have to take a shot on a guy like Donald Parham or, there'll be random guys that score a ton of points. Farrell Brown. Good luck. I mean,
right. So I think Travis Kelce should be like 25+% owned every single week. And if he's not, then there's edge on just playing Travis Kelce every single week.
Okay, James, people could find you. PaterDFS.com.
God, what a cutoff. Yeah, PaterDFS.com. And you can find me on Twitter at Pater_DFS.
What type of cutoff? I'm ending the show.
It was just abrupt. We just went from high energy to low energy, and it was just whatever.
I could do it with more high energy.
Okay, yeah. Lead back into it.
Okay, and you could also pick up the Theory of Daily Fantasy Sports, right? How to think like a professional DFS player. 15-hour audio DFS masterclass by me and James. TheoryofDFS.com. The Advanced Player's Guide. Another 10 chapters of audio and a systematic, repeatable, time-efficient Excel tools for you to apply those profitable DFS strategies. This high enough energy?
That was good.
High enough energy enough? Follow James Pater_DFS. Me at BlenderHD. Give me those thumbs on your way out the door. Tomorrow we got Will on for probably the last time we'll talk about MLB for an MLB slate or whatever. We got one more week of MLB. We've got some playoff stuff. I guess we could look at maybe some showdown stuff in October before NBA comes back. But he'll be on tomorrow. Right, we also got props, we got prize picks, we got underdog, we got pick'em, we got everything here. Scoresandodds.com, also our sister site for all the sports betting needs. And I'll see you tomorrow. And send in your questions at theoryofdfs.com, because I answer them here Monday through Friday, 11 o'clock Eastern on RotoGrinders Today.